Peace and love, family. Welcome back for another Sunday Hope and Healing session. This is Royce Fletcher Thomason here bringing you what I have to offer. I believe that we have a responsibility to give back. In ways that we've been blessed, we have a responsibility to give back. And I've definitely been very, very blessed. I say that not as a brag in any way, but in a state of deep gratitude and humility. Because I know that there are many, many, many people who would love to be in my shoes. And there's a lot I've been through in life. There's a lot I've been blessed to overcome in life. And I'm enjoying the fruit of a lot of good things. And so I want to share, giving back by sharing with you some of the things that have been helpful for me. And we do that in the Sunday Hope and Healing sessions through just sharing insights I've learned along the way, tools that I've been blessed to experience and utilize. And one of those tools, honestly, is really powerful methodology of healing, I refer to as transcending the matrix, which really looks at the totality of a person's beingness and addresses a person on every level of their beingness. So wherever you are, I pray that good things are unfolding for you. I'm thankful for the fact that you see fit to be here, that you might experience something that adds value to your life. Really on a mission to endeavor to bring about global peace. And so this is a way that I get to participate in that. The more people are operating in a state of peace and well-being and wholeness, the more that we bring more of that into the lives of one another. Curly Conscious King, my brother, as always, it's good to have you in the space. Long time no see. That's a joke. At any rate, we're here today to share with you. You know, I always pray on this, and this is what I came up with for today. And that is prospering through the employment of spiritual principles. I know that I know personally a lot of people who are spiritually focused, really genuinely good-hearted people who do right by other people who just have warm and loving spirits, and also who sometimes find themselves, struggling financially or struggling in one or more other areas of life. And so as we're dealing with this concept today of yes, this is on time, especially with everything going on in the world. Indeed it is. As we're dealing with this topic of prospering through the employment of spiritual principles, let me just touch on that for a minute. Okay. I was fortunate to, for 5 years, teach job search classes. And it was through this nonprofit, quasi nonprofit. It wasn't like a 501c3 or anything, but it was a gentleman who actually owned a staffing firm, and he sold the staffing firm, and the way that he wanted to give back is by making classes available. For one thing, he had sons graduate from college, and they were kind of stuck in terms of like getting like a full-time job. And he realized that there were a lot of things that people just didn't know about how to go about, getting the job that would be something that they would like to invest their time and their energy into. That's a way that I like to word it. And so he was a sole benefactor of this organization. And through that, I taught a variety of different classes. There was one class I was initially brought on board to teach and then end up developing a whole bunch of other classes, even facilitated a meditation session. But there were people who were going through, and some of these people were people who were making a lot of money. I remember there was a gentleman in the class who he was a high level, he had been a high level person in, a pretty large organization where he was making like $300,000 a year. And he was in these classes. So anyway, one of the things I started doing was kind of helping to shift people's perspective regarding a job, regarding employment, and things of that nature. And one of the things, we're talking about employing spiritual principles. Generally, let me put it this way. I'm broadcasting from the United States. The United States is set up. And I could say many other countries as well. I'm going to speak to this because it's what I know the most. The way that our system is set up is it's set up to most benefit landowners and business owners. That's how the whole thing is set up. And that's how business owners end up paying very little taxes, even though they may be billionaires, because the system is kind of set up that way. And so, and I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole where that's concerned. But what I do want to say is that when you're in a position to offer employment, you're putting yourself in a better position to prosper yourself. Okay. As one person, there's only so much that you can do. But when you get into the business of offering employment, you can actually utilize the benefit of the value that's offered by that which or those which you employ. Does that make sense? I'm kind of talking, being very intentional about the language that I use. But guess what? The most profitable companies have employees or have folk working there that add value to. They help them make money, right? And one of the things that we shared in these job search classes was that in most cases, if you are being employed, then you are actually bringing more value to who employs you than the value that they're extending to you, what it is that they're paying you. You're making them more money than you're making. Okay. And so in that context, I guess I'm utilizing a whole lot of words to get back around to this concept. If you take these spiritual principles and you employ them, if you put them to work, if you give them assignments that are strongly related to areas where they are strong and can actually add value to you, then it can add to your ability to prosper. Now, let me say this. Prosperity does not just relate to finances and money. It certainly doesn't exclude finances and money, but it's definitely not limited to finances and money. Okay. And so I'll kind of touch on a few things, and we're actually going to do some healing to help unlock some things for us to give us greater freedom to be able to prosper. And like in a spirit of transparency, I've known what it's been like not to be prospering, right? I've known what it's been like to struggle. I believe I've shared in the Sunday Hope and Healing sessions the kind of the backdrop of how Transcending the Matrix came to be is when I was living in a flat in Detroit, kind of in the hood. um, where I didn't have electricity for a year. And it gets pretty cold in the wintertime in Detroit. It gets very cold in the wintertime in Detroit. And the way that I heated my home for the whole winter was by leaving. Fortunately, I had a gas stove. And I just left the stove and oven running all winter long. That was how I kept the place warm. I've been in situations um, where I had to sleep in my car for a little while, right? Thankful that I had a car, but I mean, I'm just sharing with you, these were realities of my lived experience. Okay, I haven't always been in a place of prospering, and now I'm in a much better place. I am. There's certainly room for growth, but I'm definitely in a much better place. I have a car that's very reliable, gets me where I need to go. Has a few bells and whistles on it. I live in a beautiful home near a golf course in South Florida, um, and um, and I've been traveling a lot. Those are some things I've been blessed to do. I'm also very loved and surrounded by that. Anyway, I'm saying this again, not in any way to brag, but I know, as the Apostle Paul said, I know how it is to be abased and how to abound. Um, and if you're here today, it's because you want to be able to utilize the employment of some spiritual principles. You want to be able to employ some spiritual principles that will, in your life, bring you to increased levels of prosperity. I meant to get some water, and I forgot to grab it. I needed some. At any rate, let's go ahead and get started with this. And if you would, drop in the comments an area of life where you would like to experience greater prosperity. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple things, just a few. I'll put them on the screen, and we'll get into the healing. There's a very powerful one that I forgot to put on the screen, so I'll just have to speak it. One is operate with an attitude of gratitude. I can't tell you how important this is. Energy follows consciousness. Whatever you think about and you feel about, you bring about. Okay. And so it's difficult to simultaneously focus on lack and dwell in a space of gratitude at the same time, right? It's difficult to focus on lack and operate from a space of gratitude at the same time. You, beloved, were made in the image and likeness of God, which means that you are a powerful creator. I quote the Bible sometimes because it's the sacred text that I'm most familiar with as a minister. But it opens up, in the 5th verse in the whole Bible, it says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then a little while later, not too much after that, it says that you and I are made of the same stuff that God is made of, right? That we are made in the image and likeness of God. And so we too have that creative ability. What it is that we think about and what it is that we feel about, where it is that we direct our consciousness, and that which we speak to ends up coming about as manifestations in our lives. And so if we're thinking about lack, if we're focused on a state of lack, then we're going to experience more of that because we are powerful, creative beings. Conversely, if we're operating from an attitude of gratitude, and you are very blessed, no matter how. When I was sleeping in my car, times when I did not know what I was going to eat or where my meal was going to come from, I was still very blessed. There were still a lot of blessings that I had going on. There was a person who was walking around complaining about having no shoes until he met a man who had no feet. There's always somebody who's worse off than you, and there's always somebody who you're better off than. It doesn't make you necessarily a better person or them necessarily a worse person, but there's always something that you have that you can be grateful for. And the more that you focus on what it is that you can be grateful for, the better off you are. There was a point in my life where I was struggling, quite frankly, and for 40 days, I wrote down 40 different things that I was grateful for. It wasn't always at the same time of the day. Sometimes it worked out where I was able to do it in the morning, or at least start the list in the morning. And as the day went, I added things to it. There were some times where I hadn't written down anything at all, and I was feeling tired and ready to go to bed. But no matter how tired I was, I would not go to bed without making sure that I wrote down 40 things that I was grateful for. Shout out to TLC, Reverend Shahira, and Transforming Love Community, because that's where what actually sparked, me doing that. But at the end of 40 days, and I never wrote down the same thing twice. I wrote down for 40 days, I wrote down 40 different things that I was grateful for. And at the end of that 40 days, I had written down 1,600 things, different things for which I was grateful. And the result of that was that some things really shifted in my life, because I stopped focusing on, complaining or what I wasn't feeling so great about, and started focusing more on how blessed, I am and how blessed I was. Okay. So I don't want to speak too long about that. Another thing is let go. It's hard to let go when you're operating in lack also. Now this let go, it has several different facets to it. One of those facets is to let go of unforgiveness. To let go of unforgiveness. In other words, forgive anybody and everybody. Work through whatever it is that you need to work through. Whatever issues that you have towards anybody or anything, including yourself, including God. Okay? Because that's really just baggage. It's a scientific law that two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Greetings, Karen. Good to see you in the space today. It's a scientific law that two different things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. Unforgiveness is a form of darkness. Darkness isn't a thing that you need to get mad at or curse or anything like that, that you need to banish or anything like that. Darkness isn't really a God-created thing. It is actually the absence of a God-created thing, which is light. Okay? In the presence of the light, the darkness automatically disappears. And if there's some things that you're holding on to towards others, then you're cutting that area of your life off from the light. Also, you're cutting an area of yourself off from life. Okay? You're cutting an area of yourself off from life. And so there's some areas in your life that you won't be able to prosper, including financially. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of his, a lot of his shows and movies, but there's a gentleman by the name of Tyler Perry, who was once home, who was sleeping in his car, at one point in his life. And he had been trying to do these plays, and, it cost money to do the plays, but he wasn't making any money off the plays because nobody was coming. He had some issues with his father. When he forgave his father, that's when the doors opened up, and he's He's a billionaire now. Okay. He's a billionaire now. And it was directly related to him letting go and forgiving his father. Okay. All right. Now, and we'll get into all of these things a little bit more in depth. Another thing in terms of letting go, when you're holding on, that's operating from a consciousness of lack. You feel like if you let go of this, then you'll be without. When in reality, if you let go of this, you'll create room for more to come in. Okay. And there'll be a flow. Okay. So this other thing that I want to talk about, just touch on just real briefly, is pour into what pours into you. Pour into what pours into you. In other words, plant seeds into where it is that you are receiving the fruit that's helping to sustain you in your life. Okay. Now, this is all of these things really, and this is the thing that I didn't, put where you can see it on the screen, but I definitely want to speak to it. Remember earlier I said that you are made in the image and likeness of God. Yeah, you've done some things that maybe you're not so proud of. And maybe some other people have convinced you that you're maybe not so great of a human being via the things that they may have said to you or things that they may have done to you. But you are still a child of God, made in the image and likeness of God and loved by God in a way that there's nothing that you can do and nothing that anyone can do to you that can take away that love for you. The only thing that you can do is cut yourself off from the awareness of that love. You can't make yourself unloved, but you can cut yourself off from the awareness of that love in a way that makes it more difficult for you to actually experience it. Okay? All right. And so this is very important to acknowledge your own and to recognize your own worthiness of being loved and receiving love. So many of the things that we experience in life, we use as evidence to point to us being unlovable or unworthy in some way. Okay. We look at different things that happen in our lives, or maybe things that we wanted to happen in our lives that didn't happen in our lives, or maybe things that we've done to other people or that we've done to ourselves even to kind of act out this false perception of being unlovable, when the reality is we're so deeply and profoundly loved. God loves you just as much as the most holy saint. There's no one that God loves more beloved than you. Okay. And so you are worthy of love. And because you are worthy of love, I want to encourage you to know that one of the ways that you can demonstrate love to yourself is by putting energy back into putting good energy, add value back to what adds value to you. Okay. In whatever way that is. The way that so much of the world is set up is people are searching for approval from people who make that approval conditional based on how much it is that you're satisfying them. Right? That's how this world is kind of set up, to a large degree. And so there are people who will withhold their love, will withhold their approval, will withhold their praise, who will withhold from you what will be nurturing and sustaining for you as a way of manipulating you to seek out their approval so that you will receive the reward that they have to give you, which usually is going to come in some morsel. Okay. And then we end up actually neglecting that which we will a lot of times do more for that which withholds more from us, rather than pouring into what pours into us, pouring value into what pours value into us. Okay. Now that can show up in a whole lot of different ways, but this key principle that I want you to understand is, as an expression of self-love, the fruit that is sustaining you, take the seeds from that fruit, wherever it is that you're receiving that fruit, and pour it back into that ground. Be good to the people who are good to you. Bless those who bless you. Prosper areas where you are receiving something that's nurturing you. Sow money back into your own community, right? Oh, I could go on and on about this, but it's already almost 1:30. And I do want to get into the healing. But this main point that I want you to take away with it from this is, whatever area that you're receiving some value, and be honest with yourself about it. Pour back into there. Pour back into there. Okay? Give to those who have less than you. Okay? There's always going to be somebody who has less than you. Okay? There's always going to be somebody who has less than you. You know, these two things, these are the last two things, what I'm talking about now and what I just spoke about, really these things are kind of speaking to the principle of tithing in a way, right? Which, another thing kind of related to this, I won't put it here, is like, don't expect to harvest everything that you grow. That's part of that giving back thing. Don't expect to harvest everything that you grow. Take a portion of what it is that you grow and let that go back, be put back in to where it is that it grew from. You know, if you have business, you want to put money back into the business. If you have a community where you're thriving, you want to put back into that community. Okay. And also, the wealthiest people, the richest people, aren't the ones who have the most. The richest people are the ones who can give the most. The one, not who can give the most, the ones who do give the most. Okay. Now, what part of what you may have may be money, part of it may be something else, right? There's this book actually behind me, called A Course in Miracles. And one of the things that A Course in Miracles talks about is that the idea of those who temporarily have more, giving those who temporarily have less. Those who temporarily have more, giving to those who temporarily have less. How many times have you had an opportunity where you could give a little something to somebody who had less than you? Maybe it was information. Maybe it was connecting them with somebody who would be useful for them to connect with. Maybe it was money in some form. Okay. Maybe it was some warmth. You know, there was a friend of mine, and I still do this to this day. I still do this to this day. But I had a friend in college, whenever we would leave one another's presence, whoever was leaving would say to the other, if you see somebody who doesn't have a smile, and then the other person would respond, give them one of yours, right? And so to this day, I still do this, and I'll share the story. If I see somebody, maybe the person at the register in the grocery store, you know, it may be somebody on the street that I that I encounter. I'll share that story and I'll smile as I'm sharing the story. And I can't tell you how many times I've done this. It's only been one time that the person didn't receive the smile and end up having a smile on their face. There have been times I've been walking past stores and saw somebody inside who was maybe looking kind of down. Maybe the store was empty and they were looking kind of down, and I went in and shared it with them, and it helped bring some added value to their day. It helped bring some sunshine into their day, some joy into their day. It helped to raise their vibration a little bit. There's always somebody who's worse off than you are. And if you can give some of what it is that you have, here's the thing about it. Giving some of what you have to someone who has less isn't necessarily going to end up hurting you by helping them. In most cases, especially if you're allowing your heart to be open, in most cases, it's going to help them and it's going to help you. I can't tell you how many times I have felt inclined, inspired, led to say something to somebody that I didn't know. And it's always kind of a weird feeling, because you don't know how it is that they're going to take it. But at times I've done it, it felt really good to have done that. And I understood why I was being led to say to this person, whoever it is, what it was that I was feeling led to say to them. I can also tell you, just in the spirit of transparency, that there have been times where I've not done that, and it never has felt good not doing that, because I always end up feeling like, oh, shoot, I should have done that. That was a missed opportunity. Okay. I don't usually spend cash. I usually just give cash. There's always somebody who could use something. Again, I'm very, very blessed in so many different ways. I wonder, there are a lot of people, I wonder how they can possibly eat just as expensive as things are, right? Just as expensive. I saw something in the store yesterday that was 3 times what I used to pay for it just a few years ago. 3 times what I used to pay for it just a few years ago. Most people's income hasn't tripled from just a few years ago, and there are a lot of people who I recognize have been struggling. A way that you can help employ some spiritual principles for you to prosper in your own life is to giving to those who have less than you. And in that process of giving, you're creating room for more to flow back to you. And this is the last thing I'll kind of touch on, and then we'll get into the healing. Something that I learned from Dr. Cam Ewan is this concept, as it related to healing, it was this concept of see it, believe it, expect it, imagine it, imagination into reality. So I'm saying here, see it, believe it, expect it, imagine it. And then I'm saying emotionally experience the imagination as reality. Okay. If you're not familiar with Neville Goddard, I want to encourage you to check out Neville Goddard. You can type in Neville Goddard already in Barbados, or you can maybe even just do a search on you're already in Barbados and on YouTube. Shout out to Nafis Hassan for introducing me to Neville Goddard and that whole concept. I don't want to speak too long about this, but what I want to essentially get at is, again, we are very, very powerful creators. And what it is that we think about and we feel about, we bring about. If you can create a vision in your mind of a reality that's different than the one that you have been participating in, because the reality is that we exist in a sea of infinite potentialities. There is a reality that we're living in, but that is an ultimate reality. And we have an infinite number of realities that we can choose to tap into. In fact, that is what faith is. We typically think of faith as being something that you have in God, something that you may have in another person, something that you may have in yourself. But in fact, what faith actually is tapping into a reality that you don't necessarily currently see existing in the present moment. Okay. There are a number of timelines existing simultaneously. There are multiple dimensions existing simultaneously, and there are multiple potentialities. I would say an infinite number of potentialities existing simultaneously. And the reality that you end up living and experiencing yourself in is the one to which you have attuned yourself. And so faith is essentially where you are giving energy to that which is yet to manifest in the physical realm. Okay. And you can put your faith in things not working out, or you can put your faith in things working out extremely well. The reality is that your mind doesn't really know the difference between what it is that you've already experienced, or what it is that you're experiencing now, and what it is that you are putting your mind to with respect to the future of some event that hasn't yet taken place. And in reality, it already has taken place. It's just whether you're choosing to operate aligned with and experience that reality or another reality. And it's optimal for us to tap into the more desired reality. Are you feeling me on this? Ron Hamilton, good to see you, my brother. Okay. And so this is very key, folks, to allow yourself to see a version of a reality, and to allow yourself to tap into it in a way that you can imagine it, and not just imagine it intellectually, but where you can actually see it in your mind's eye, and then actually emotionally experience it as something that is already present. Or even better yet, what I sometimes do is I endeavor to experience it as a memory of what's already happened. So in my mind, in a way, I'm going to a point in the future where this thing is already fulfilled. Not there where I'm wanting it to be fulfilled, but where it's already fulfilled. And I'm allowing myself to get emotionally involved with that experience. Okay. Where I'm allowing myself to feel what it feels like to be there now, or to already be there and celebrate with joy what it actually feels like being there. I recently spoke with someone who has an offspring who is getting ready to go off to college next year, and there's a particular school they want them to be able to get in a really good school. There's an optimal school that they want them to get into, and one of the things I suggested to them is focus on your experience being at their graduation from school that you feel really good about them graduating from, and that they feel really good about them graduating from. Okay. Can make it this particular school, or just a school in general that you feel really good about them graduating from, and they feel really good about them graduating from. We want to bypass the whole thing about whether they get in or not, how their testing scores are, and all of those things, and just jump to the point in the future where you're actually there at the graduation, or talking about the graduation, getting present to the emotional state of what the graduation was like from this particular school, or this particular type of school. All right. And so again, it's 1:40. I need to stop talking and getting into the healing now. This probably will warrant a part 2. I will be in LA in transit at 1 p.m. Eastern time next Sunday. So we'll have to figure out how we'll do the Sunday Hope and Healing session. I may pre-record it or something. We'll figure that out. But I definitely believe this will warrant a part 2. But let's go ahead and get into this, kind of breaking off some of the things that are standing between us and our next level of prosperity, wherever that might be. Okay, and no matter where we are on the spectrum, there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. But I'm going to definitely do what I can to offer support. Okay, so God, I know you to be a healer, to be a transformer. And I know that above all else that we prosper and be in good health, even as our souls prosper. And I'm so thankful for the wonderful gift of being able to demonstrate you as a healer on behalf of, state your name out loud or silently, or anybody in your heart that you'd like to see grow to another level of prosperity. Neutralizing the root cause of all internal and external experiences of lack, of holding on to that which is not serving our highest and best good. From the point of the causal root in the entire energy field of every strand of DNA in every cell of each one of our bodies, and transmuting that into and replacing it with optimally employing spiritual principles that allow us to profoundly prosper in any and every area of our life where we're desiring to experience new levels of prosperity. And to be able to celebrate that with a spirit of deep gratitude and appreciation. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right. So one of the first things that we talked about was operating in an attitude of gratitude. So let's address what stands in the way of us operating from an attitude of gratitude. One of the things that distracts us from operating in an attitude of gratitude is types of internal negativity that we might have. Okay, so we want to address some of that internal negativity, transmute some of that internal negativity into being able to perceive optimal outcomes as real possibilities in our lives. Okay. Now, there are things that have contributed to us having, kind of negative perceptions regarding things, seen from a state of lack. And one of those things, as quiet as it's kept, actually is a selfishness. Okay. And what I mean in terms of a selfishness is sometimes we're looking from a standpoint of what it is that we can get, whether it's in relationships or any other area of our lives, where our focus is on what it is that we can get more than it is on what it is that we can give. Okay. How is it that we can add value? Okay. And we can actually experience greater value by adding greater value to others. Okay. However, if our only focus is on what we can get, like that's coming from an attitude of lack. Okay. Rather than an attitude of gratitude. And when you're truly operating from an attitude of gratitude, it's easier to extend forgiveness. There are folk who didn't do to or for you in a way that you would have liked, no doubt. If you're human, that's been your experience on some level from somebody, whether a parent, an employer, some person in a position of leadership, the government, whoever, right? But let's strengthen us to actually be able to see what it is that we can focus on, what it is that we can be grateful for. Operate from an attitude of gratitude. Okay. Even if your parent was never in your life, they did something good for you, and that was contribute to you being born. Okay. Whatever it is that you can find gratitude for, put your energy and attention there, because if you're focused on lack, that's lowering your vibration. If you're focused on what it is that you have, if you focus on what blessings are unfolding, that actually elevates your vibration. It is difficult to be grateful and miserable at the same time. Okay. All right. So let's actually look at, just negative experiences that you might have had, negative people that you've been around. Okay. Sometimes, one of the things we talked about last week and the healing that we were doing in terms of eliminating parasites in your mind, talked about there are parasites that we can take in as a function of that which we ingest or that which we feed upon. And there are situations where we can be affected and infected by parasites as a function of the environment that we find ourselves in. Okay. And so sometimes we have developed these negative attitudes as a function of where it is that we place ourselves. So I want to strengthen us to be able to place ourselves in the presence and in environments where there are people who are talking about positive things, people who can help lift and raise your vibration. Okay. And if you don't have any of those people in your own life directly, guess what? You can find them online on YouTube. Okay, there's a ton of content out there that can be utilized to help elevate your vibration. I would think that this would be one of those things. And certainly there are many others. I certainly have been blessed to tap into many. And there are many others there's one I was just tapped into just this week. That's adding value to me and to my life. All right. So let's strengthen us to openness to new and improved possibilities. All right. So this other one, dealing with letting go. So let's look at the fear of letting go. I want to delete that, transmute it from the point of the cause and root into the ability to release, whether that is releasing unforgiveness, letting go of unforgiveness, whether that is releasing people, whether that is releasing a particular job, whether that is releasing certain attitudes and belief systems, or whether that is releasing the idea that you deserve something less than that which is optimal for you. Okay. And transmute that into not only an attitude of gratitude, but also an attitude of abundance. Okay. We frequently are afraid to let go because we think that there will be a void that will be created as a function of our letting go. I mentioned the scientific law earlier that two things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. Another scientific law is that nature abhors a vacuum. And so if something goes out, then something will naturally come back in to replace it. You just have to be open to that as a possibility. Okay. All righty. Okay. Oh gosh, we're quickly running out of time. All right, so let's look at fear of letting go of a person, fear of letting go of a situation, fear of letting go of a mindset. That's key. We got to break there. So let's strengthen us there to where we move beyond this false evidence of appearing real, that we somehow will be missing out by letting go of a mindset. Okay. All right. And we want to replace that with just the awareness and the openness to receiving in its place a new and improved mindset. Okay. No matter where your mindset is, there's always room for improvement. Certainly in my mind, there's room for improvement of my mindset. I'm a fairly positive person. But for all of us, there's always room for a new and improved mindset. So let's strengthen us all for that. Let's strengthen us all for self-love. Strengthen us all to feel worthy of love. Referenced the Course in Miracles earlier. One of the other things that the Course in Miracles talks about is that the Course doesn't really seek to necessarily create more love for you per se, but what it does seek to do is eliminate the barriers to the awareness of love's presence. Like there is so much love right now in this moment. Who is it that did the statue of the David? Was it Michelangelo? If you know it, put it in the comments. I'm wanting to say it was Michelangelo. And he carved it out of, I believe, out of marble or out of some stone. And he said what he did was he didn't create this statue, the David. All that he did was chop away all of the things that were not the David to reveal the presence of the David that was there, right? To reveal the presence of the statue that was hiding there all the time, that had always been there. Excuse me. So that's what our ultimate endeavor is to actually free ourselves from all the things that are hiding the beauty, the truth, the love, the grace. All right. Shout out to my friend Grace right now, who's just so full of it. Who's so full of grace. I just have fun saying her name. Some of you who are here know who I'm talking about. All right, so let's actually strengthen us in terms of pouring into what pours into us, pouring good into what pours good into us, which is very distinctly different from pouring bad into whoever pours bad into you. Okay, so like, what if whatever anybody does or intends towards you returns to them in double, and you don't have to be the one doing it? And whatever if whatever you do or whatever you intend towards anyone else also returns double to you. Okay. If I didn't say it right before, I meant to say, whatever anybody does or intends towards you returns double to them, and whatever you do or intend towards anyone else returns double to you. Hey, peace and love, Jennifer Bliss. Good to have you in the space today. Bountiful blessings to you as well. Bountiful blessings. That may have not been a typo if I'm guessing correctly. Bountiful blessings to you as well. I love that. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's look at things that we might do to withhold. No, not things we do to withhold love from ourselves. What's stopping us from loving ourselves in a way that leads us to pour good into that which pours good into us and helps to sustain us. Okay. Fear of loss. All right. So let's address that fear of loss. Yeah. When I thought about it for a fraction of a second, I got, yeah, that was not a typo. All right. Fear of loss that exists within the collective consciousness of humanity and within those with whom we have invested our time. All right. And I want to actually strengthen us to invest our time with those who bring added value to us, to whom we can bring added value to, and to whom bring added value to us. And then what that happens is it creates this positive feedback loop where good energy is just being recycled. We're pouring good energy to what's being poured into us, therefore further empowering what pours good energy to us into us to be able to continue pouring good energy into us. Okay, and that shows up in a variety of different ways. Okay, there are a variety of different ways that you can do that. Okay, and let's strengthen us to be able to have eyes to see where it is that we can sow seed back into what is pouring into us. Okay. Oh, I love that, Jennifer. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's strengthen us for that. Okay. And opening us up to infinite possibilities of good. Infinite possibilities for us to do good. Often we think of what it is that we can get and not what it is that we can give, without thinking about the fact that in order for us to give, we have to be getting something in order to give it. So if we focus on how it is that we can give more, we're actually opening up channels for us to be able to receive more in order to give more, right? Okay. And in whatever area it is that we're wanting to receive, if we can give what it is that we're wanting to receive, because that opens up doors for us to be able to receive in that particular area as well. Okay. And for us to be able to see where the needs are and to fulfill them. One of the things in terms of like a job search is if you can identify a company's pain points and then figure out how it is that you can actually help resolve those pain points, you are putting yourself in a position where you're adding value to that company, because companies aren't in the business of hiring people because they're coming from a benevolent place in doing so. And that's not to say that there aren't companies who have some level of a benevolent mindset. But if a company is hiring a person to do a job, it's because they have a job that needs to be done. Okay. And so if you're showing, you don't want to think about trying to get a job. You want to focus on where it is that you can add value to an organization. And the organization, if the organization can see where it is that you can add value to them, then they will want to bring you on board. And if they want to bring you on board badly enough, they'll pay you handsomely to do what it is that you can do to help add value to them. But another key is actually knowing your own value. So let's strengthen us all to be able to know our value. Oh boy, I really am trying to keep this under the hour mark. Strengthen us to be able to see and recognize our own value. Not our lack of value, but see where it is that we can add value. Okay. And actually to be able to experience ourselves as value adders that continually receive value being added to us in the process. Not to where you're being taken advantage of, but that you also know your value in a way that commands you being valued. Okay. Not demands, but commands. Like the way a beautiful sunrise or a beautiful sunset may command a certain feeling in a person. Strengthen us for that. Okay. There's a part of me that's trying to go somewhere right now. Oh, in the spirit. Okay. All right. Let's come back to earth, Royce. Okay. All right. I'm going to do one more thing and then we'll close it off for today. And that is to redirect our attention and our focus on that which actually can feed our minds, that which is going to be fruitful for us and will allow us to prosper internally. Okay, strengthen us all for that, so that we feed our minds things that actually help us to be in a position to prosper. Speaking of which, one of these days in the not too distant future, I'm going to share with you about a class that's coming up dealing with principles of budgeting. We'll get into that on a future occasion. All right. All right. God, I know you to be a healer, a deliverer, a sustainer, and most certainly a blesser. And you have healed, delivered, and blessed us today. Thank you for opening our awareness to some spiritual principles that we can actually employ, that we can utilize, that we can have working for us in a way that benefits and prospers us. And whatever areas of our lives that we choose to experience prosperity. And I thank you so much for loving us enough to make infinite possibilities ours for the claiming and the receiving. And not only that, but empowering us to give abundantly from the abundant storehouse of blessings, which has been provided for us. Thank you for these and all other blessings. Ashe and amen. All right, beloved. That's so exciting. Yes. And that's not even a class I'm teaching, by the way. But yes, there are some TTM classes coming up soon, including TTM Level 2 class on mental and emotional healing, neurological upgrading, and brain optimization. And that will be happening this year, which we're getting so close to the end of it. It's already September 7th. Can you believe it? Glad that you have enjoyed it, Curly Conscious King. Yes, we will definitely have to be doing a part 2 of this, and some information will be coming. Some information will be forthcoming. I'm kind of excited about it as I giggle and look forward to a conversation about what I've just said. Anyway, I love you all. I'm so thankful for our time of being here today. If you choose to actually sew back into, if you find value from this and you want to sew back into it, you're certainly welcome to do so. The Cash App thing is running on the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Curly Conscious King. Love and blessings and infinite abundance to you. Yes, may we all have an amazing week of purpose. I love you all. I'm so thankful for your presence here. I'm thankful for the improved levels of blessings in your life. Bountiful, bright blessings upon all of us. And as we continue to endeavor to enter into the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, until we meet again, I bid you adieu with peace and love. And I'll catch you next time.